State Rep Nick Archer, our guest today on Oklahoma Chronicle out of Elk City, a Republican from House District 55. Thanks so much for being here.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Evan.
We've sat down here before. Last time, it was, I believe, in the middle of the last session. We were talking about a piece of legislation that you had authored that was trying to create this nuclear statewide office.
Yes, sir.
Which got out of the House, stalled out in the Senate, as I understand. And
Yes,
I'm
sir.
bringing you back right now because while I would love to hear what happened with that legislation, there's this other nuclear effort at play that I know you've kind of had a hand in as well. So there's a lot going on right now when it comes to nuclear energy in Oklahoma.
It's been very busy, sir. And yeah, that piece of legislation, we actually passed it out of the House twice. So at the end of session, there around the end of, middle of May, before we got out, we sent it back inside of a Senate bill to try to give it a second shot. But ultimately, that was a forward piece of legislation. The second piece of it created a revolving fund with the anticipation that if we were ever to receive an award like what we are now a finalist for now, you got to have a bucket for those federal dollars to go into.
Right. So why did it stall in the Senate as far as you're concerned? Was it the budget?
I think the biggest reason it stalled is because of that revolving fund. And so when you think about the budget chairman in the House, in the Senate, when you create a revolving fund, yet you allocate no state dollars to it, that's things that they generally frown upon. And so without putting money in there, I think that was the biggest holdup.
It was asking for money without necessarily the certain promise of money coming out of it.
There was no appropriation time.
Right. All right. So I'll come back to that, but let's talk about what we're working on right now. The state is a finalist. Is it 5 states that are finalists for this nuclear innovation campus?
Yes, sir.
I mean, and this is obviously a big deal, but I think it's even bigger than than what people are understanding, because this would be a full service nuclear facility that we would have in the state, not just the research and all that, but I mean, there'd be the storage, the creation, there'd be the reactors. It would be literally everything.
All of the intellectual property, I mean, things that don't exist today will come from wherever this lab gets established. And
why is Oklahoma primed for something like this?
I think because of our energy background, our dominance just as an energy producing state over the last several decades. I think when you couple that with our strong workforce, whether that's the aerospace industry and all of the advanced manufacturing that goes into creating the planes and all of the pieces, we've talked about how parts of the Artemis mission down to the joystick that controlled the lunar module was created right here and made in the state of Oklahoma. And so we have a lot of advanced manufacturing. We have a lot of strengths. The lieutenant governor says we have the most robust and nimble career tech system in the nation. And so when you think about lab techs and those kinds of things, and then you couple that with our higher ed, our universities, we really are a prime candidate.
So, and you come from the oil and gas industry. That is your background. Why does Oklahoma's history and strength in oil and gas, how does that play into nuclear? And why does oil and gas mean that it would be good for nuclear?
Yeah, oil and gas goes hand in hand with all energy, right? We need to produce electrons in the state. When you think about the oil and gas industry and how many welders, certified welders, and all kinds of those occupations that exist in the workforce today within the oil and gas industry, there's a lot of overlap for those positions if a new industry like nuclear starts to take off in the state.
This would require, I was reading the proposal that was put forward to the Department of Energy from the state. They talked about when it comes to the storage, storing it thousands of feet below the surface in these deep bore drilled holes. And so there would be drilling involved, there'd be deep. For people who hear storage of nuclear energy, and we've talked about this before, radioactive components, it makes people nervous. It makes some people very nervous, especially when you're drilling it into the Oklahoma ground and leaving it there forever.
Yeah.
Why shouldn't people be nervous about this?
Yeah, I think When most people think about nuclear, especially when they think about the actual waste product, you know, they think of glowing green liquid sloshing out of drums. And that's, you know,
that does come to mind.
that's not the reality. That's not what goes on. And I think the piece that most people don't understand, just from the comments you see online on social media and those kinds of things, the Innovation Campus is not to establish a waste dump. The federal government in the early 2000s spent $15 billion trying to create Yucca Mountain, which was the repository like I think most people consider when they hear this.
Sure.
Ultimately, that never came to fruition. That's not coming to fruition now in the state of Oklahoma. The reality is we have a lot of material, which is spent fuel. It's not waste. When that fuel is utilized at a generation facility, like say the Tennessee Valley Authority, that material that comes out of that reactor has only been used to about 5 to 10% of its potential energy. And right now it is stored on casks on site. And so we have 90 to 95% of the potential still there. When you think about that and you couple it with the fact that about 99% of our uranium is imported from foreign countries, we have a lot of material on hand here that the federal government is now saying we have a great stockpile. It's not waste. We're not sticking it all in the ground. We're not doing that. We have an opportunity to reclaim that, to add value to the chain, and to develop those technologies so that we are not so reliant on all of these foreign supply chains.
What would getting this, and the Department of Energy has said that up to 3 states could end up being given one of these campuses. What would it mean for Oklahoma in your mind if Oklahoma was selected? It's
generational opportunity, in my opinion. If you look at how national labs affect their parent states and the economic engines that they create, you're talking about direct dollars investments of multiple billions. You know, if you talk to an economic development person, they'll put some sort of multiplier on that about true economic impact. But the Department of Energy has stated in their RFP that went out in January that we submitted for that the main hub, the main campus, has the highest potential at the upper end of that scale to generate $50 billion of economic development and 25,000 jobs. Those are opportunities for engineers, for physicists that don't exist in the state of Oklahoma today, and I think we would be remiss if we didn't pursue it.
All right, and I just got one last question, just about 20-second answer, because I'm already over time.
Sorry.
But going back to the bill that you pushed through that did not make it through to establish the statewide office.
Yes, sir.
The fact that that did not go through, does that hurt Oklahoma in its bid for this, do you think?
I hope not.
Okay. Are you going to bring it back next
It's already
session?
coming back.
It's
Yes,
already
sir.
coming back. Nick Archer from Elk City, Republican, and the chair of the House Energy Committee, by the way. Thanks so much for being here.
Thank you,
appreciate
sir.
the time. Absolutely. Appreciate it.